Federal government makes advance payment to cover homegrown school feeding program for January 2020. The Nigerian farmers anticipate boom in cotton production with discovery of new seed variety.
With this now, there will be access to quality seeds, improved and quality seeds, and then certified seed. Of course, that is what the National Agric Seed Council has always been advocating for.
Minister of Women Affairs visits internally displaced persons in the spirit of the Yuletide. And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we'll continue our review of major issues discussed on the program in the outgoing year. It is a tradition for us on Good Morning Nigeria to review major issues discussed as the year winds down. And indeed, as the tradition has been sustained over the years, so this year is no exception. And we started the review, I beg your pardon, last week, Thursday, and Friday, and we did, of course, look at some of the editions that focused on political, social, as well as diplomatic issues and events that took center stage in Nigeria in, of course, this outgoing year. No doubt, Claire, the year 2019 was quite eventful, and of course, your favorite breakfast show, Good Morning Nigeria, kept tabs on issues as well as events that trended with insightful contributions from various experts in their various fields on a daily basis, the weekdays, all year round. And indeed, the discussions were rich and robust, and the quality of resource persons who preferred solutions. Of course, that's some of our tweeters. We are not forgetting some of our tweeters who follow us on every edition of this program, and the recommendations that we have compiled. There are recommendations that we compile yearbooks on our critical topics discussed on this program to serve as reference points for governance across all strata of the Nigerian society. On the outlook today, we'll take a retrospective look at our editions on the gains of the fight against corruption, which is one of the cardinal objectives of the present administration led by President Muhammadu Buhari, and one which has already kind of shaped the way things are being done in the country, and that's for the better. Indeed, we shall also recap in our review today conversations on some of the social issues that hit our front burner, such as, of course, suicide, sexual harassment on campuses. We'll also be looking at matters arising from the UTME examinations with 5 reaching solutions preferred by experts who spoke on the various issues. And, well, Claire, yes. I think those are sizzling tips, actually. You actually recall the memorable outings on Good Morning Nigeria for the outgoing year. And as we do that, 2019, for so many people, holds so many things. And definitely we'll walk our viewers, that's in this morning again, we'll walk them down memory lane as we continue our review of editions of Good Morning Nigeria. Highlights, we call them, for the year 2019. My name is Blessing Abu. Welcome to the program. And it's a bright Monday morning, the last for this year and indeed for this decade. And so we are very, very glad to have you with us as we again continue our review of major issues we discussed on this program. I am Claire Delabo Abdulrazak, and the program is broadcast live on Africa's largest TV network, the NTA, right here from the nation's capital, Abuja. We have other, of course, segments that we will be looking at. Newspaper review will come your way. We'll be looking at sports, hopefully, and other aspects like foreign arts and entertainment. But for now, let's join our colleague Habiba Oladipo to give us the morning news. Habiba, good morning, and compliments of the season to you.
Compliment of the season to you, Blessing and Claire. Good morning, Nigeria. Here is the early morning news. In a proactive move, the the federal government has paid suppliers of foodstuff and cooks under the Homegrown School Feeding Program for January 2020. This is to ensure that feeding the 9.9 million pupils in the participating states and the FTT starts immediately school resumes in 2 weeks. The Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, Sadia Umar Farouk, announced this in Abuja, explaining that the funds were released in December to give the suppliers and cooks adequate time to procure and stock foodstuff to avoid excuses. The minister expressed federal government's appreciations to reports of improved pupils' hygiene and attendance in schools and warns that the federal government would not accept any drop in the nutritional quality of meals given to the children. The new cottonseed variety produced by Nigerian agronomists has proved to have potential for high-quality fiber, sustainable for textile materials. Key stakeholders therefore are hopeful that Nigeria will soon experience boom in the sector.
This field day will also serve to assess the excitement generated among cotton farmers on the seed performance, with yield potential of between 4.1 to 4.4 tons per hectare. This compared to what you get using the traditional varieties, would give you only between 250 to 750 kilograms per hectare.
This now, there will be access to quality seeds, improved and quality seeds, and then certified seeds. Of course, that is what the National Agriculture Seed Council has always been advocating for.
And in the spirit of the season, the Minister of Women Affairs went round Abuja city to show love to internally displaced persons and orphans. The visit also gives them a projection into areas of priority come 2020.
For the IDPs, you saw how moved I was. It was really emotional, and the deplorable condition of where they were living, and most of them, they don't have water, they don't have light. The health of most of the children was not good enough. It's not just for this Christmas season alone. We will try to check on them and to know what's happening with the children, because the child belongs to all.
And security matters, the FCT Police Command has refuted the misleading message being circulated in the social media, claiming that bandits and kidnappers killed 4 persons at Bagi Mongoro of KP Access. On the contrary, the FCT Police Command swiftly responded to a distress call on the 29th December 2019 and arrested 2 suspects, armed robbers at a robbery scene in Bogu village along Kabi Mongoro Road at Kepi. A statement by the FCT Police Command indicates that police operatives attached to Peggy Division were instantly deployed to the scene, where they apprehended 2 suspects and disarmed them. Unfortunately, 2 victims of the robbery were killed following deep machete wounds inflicted on them by the suspects. Efforts are in place to arrest one of the suspects still at large. The Commissioner of the FCT Police Command has launched a district investigation into the incident. The command urges residents to remain calm and reiterated its unwavering commitment to the protection of lives and property within the Federal Capital Territory. And elsewhere, counting of ballots is set to be ongoing in the 2019 Guinea-Bissau runoff presidential elections. This is the second round of elections after the first could not produce an outright winner.
Je pense que le processus se déroule conformément au cadre légal.
I think everything is going on well as expected. I am always impressed by the mobilization and attendance of voters, the calm and the good relationship between all the actors supervising the election process.
Bonne relation entre les différents acteurs qui sont chargés de superviser le déroulement des élections.
Nous avons sensibiliser les candidats, les 2.
We met the 2 candidates. We sensitized them to accept the result of the election. We are sure that we are in a good way.
And that is the news for now. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Blessing and Claire after this break.
20 years of travel and counting. 20 years of promoting tourism in Africa and diaspora. Over 3 million kilometers traveled. Over 30 African countries visited. Explored the diaspora in 4 continents. Connected over 100,000 happy tourists to Africa. Reached over 50 million homes. Igniting smiles across Africa and beyond. As Goge Africa turns 20, we thank you and invite you to join us in the quest for 20 must-visit destinations in partnerships with the largest TV network in Africa, the NTA, Ministry of Information and Culture, Ministry of Transportation, Studio 24, Delta Airline, Tour Brokers International. You too can still be a partner. Call the numbers on your screen or info@gogeafrica.tv. Goge Africa, celebrating 2 decades of heritage, travel and tourism.
You can choose to do this with your stew, but not your data. Get more out of life with the new Airtel data plans. Dial *141# today. Data is life.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
Not so fast. Look, I'm tired. I want to check out of this country for greener pastures.
Just calm down for a moment. Please sit down.
Do you have a job where you're going to? No, but someone is arranging,
Listen, Alinko. Checking out of this country without proper planning means one thing. Unimaginable begin. You know, I've been in the diaspora, but legitimately doing great things at home and abroad. As I've been saying, without the proper footing abroad, the risk is not worth it. Listen, Alinko, it's better to be home than be trapped abroad or even end up in prison.
I'm Deputy Comptroller of Customs Joseph Atta, the spokesman for the joint security exercise. Over a period of time, either through indifference or deliberate non-compliance to the ECOWAS protocol on transit of goods by our neighbors, the Nigerian Customs Service have been raising this issue. MOUs were signed severally. They were broken as soon as they were signed. We've seized over 32,050 kg bags of rice, and that is a huge impact. And then the fact that the coming in of this foreign rice have been completely shut down. We've gone around, we've received testimonies of farmers who, before now, found it difficult to sell one truck on a market day. These people say it now that those who could not sell one can now sell up to 20 trucks.
What we are really cultivating here is a better future for all Nigerian women, and it's not always easy. Panadol Extra relieves headache, backache, joint pain, toothache, and menstrual pain. The pain is worth it.
If you just tuned in, you're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of Africa's largest television network, the NTA. Now, central bank's downward review of bank charges perceived as one of the heartwarming policies of the outgoing year 2019. Well, let's find out more details with Abdul Karim Zurmi with our business news.
The CBN's decision to slash the charges is based on its quest to make financial services more affordable and accessible to the people. The charges include the removal of card maintenance fees to all cards linked to current accounts, reduction of amounts payable for cash withdrawals from other banks' automated teller machines from 65 naira to 35 naira after third withdrawal within a month, and reduction of advance payments guarantee.
Every small slash means a lot, and it also shows you that our financial systems are engaging. Okay, it also shows you that you now have, a financial system that actually now interfaces, with the developments in the financial geopolitics. So I think it's a good development.
With business news, Abdul Karim Zurmi.
All right, many thanks to you, Abdul Karim, for the brief business package. It's time now for newspaper review, and that's coming up shortly.
I'd like to welcome Bayo TV, GMN newspaper reviewer, and good to see you. Compliments of the season.
Compliment the same to you.
Good
Good morning,
Bayo,
Claire.
where
Good
did you
morning.
go to?
Good morning, Nigeria.
Good to see you, Bayo.
There's always need to rest.
Indeed.
The time I took was far shorter than the one you took. So I rested in a shorter time. Thank you.
You deserve it, Bayo. Thank you. Welcome back. Yes, brand new you too.
Yes.
Okay, let's kick off with Daily Trust. Quite a busy front page this morning. Let me start with the lead story. How reps, MDAs differ on 1.4 trillion naira unremitted funds. And it comes with a rider, probe not to intimidate agencies, Chief Whip. Bayo, I hope you're taking note of that. Probe not to intimidate agencies, Chief Whip. And then there's a graphic story of, some of the agencies, MDAs, corporate ones there, so to speak. Right there you find MDAs, 1.4 trillion unremitted funds to FJ. You have PPPRA, you have NPA, you have NIMASA. Again, NIMASA, Railway and Ministry of Transport. Bayo will speak to that in a short. Bayo, I think you should just take a look at this first. Yes.
It's various committees of the House of Representatives are doing part of their oversight function, and they have found that there are several ministries, departments, and agencies that are required to make remittance to the Federation account, but have not done so. These are revenue sources that should come back to the Federation. And the House has emphasized that it is not an attempt to indict anybody, but to ensure that monies meant to go to the Federation account are adequately allocated. And those agencies you identified are the ones that have been listed.
The PPPRA has unremitted IJR over 15 years, 1.343 trillion naira.
Yes.
And
Post Authority?
Yes. No, NSITF, that's the Social
Investment Trust Fund.
Trust Fund. Training has about 2.3 billion naira. And then NPA unsigned renovation contract in 2011, that's about 5 billion naira. And customs missing in 2013 account, 14.8 billion naira. NIMASA escort fee for several years amounting to 18.1 million naira. NIMASA again, Maritime University in 2019 budget, 3 billion naira. NIMASA again, office cleaning, insurance and vehicles in 2019 budget, 700 million naira. Then we have railway, no details, in 2013 to 2014 account, amounting to 1.2 billion naira. Then Ministry of Transport as a whole, security surveillance contract for waterways since 2018, amounting to 59.8 billion naira.
It must be added quickly that if it was budgeted, provided the funds were not released, that indicates that those were the plan to spend that quantum of money. But if such monies were released and they are not accounted for, this is why the House of Reps are asking questions. And when a nation is hard hit and looking for resources, we look everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yes.
Everywhere. And they are saying probe is not to intimidate agencies. Yes. That's coming from Chief Whip. Okay, let's get to the Punch newspaper. Raft of stories, really. Okay, start off with that of the taxpayers getting a 30 days window to obtain tax certificates. Details about that on page 29. And just beside the masthead, we have Sarah, others asking a court to stop 37 billion naira National Assembly renovation. That's trending on page 13. And leading for the Punch newspaper this morning, funding crisis cripples 12 key federal roads, contractors abandoned projects. And there's a rider, federal government budget 84.54 billion naira for major roads in 3 years. More details about that on page 2. Bayo, let's pull those ones.
Well, those are some of the critical issues that is of concern for the federal administration, especially infrastructure, roads, railway, and especially power too, because these are very critical to empowering people to work for themselves and move the nation forward.
Sure.
But the indication from Punch is that this is the quantum of monies that have been voted for road construction. And apparently, many of the budgets that were so proposed were not adequately funded. And that is why we are having some drawbacks on it. But by and large, there have been tremendous initiatives about improving the status of the road so as to help the whole idea of engendering agriculture as a mainstay of the economy. But the challenges are that these infrastructure are critical, and when resources are budgeted for it, there should be releases for it to be completed. And the Punch is leading the idea of ensuring that whatever is budgeted for is questions are asked and is accounted for.
Okay. Also speak on the issue of the taxpayers, you read, getting 30 days to obtain tax certificates. What's that?
Tax certificate is, I think, is a concession that is made by the Federal Inland Revenue Services. It's part of, again, the broad scope and the challenge for the Internal Revenue Services to meet the mandate. You also recall, like we have said earlier on, revenue is a challenge, and government has put pressure on all revenue agencies to do their best to remit as much as they can so as to reduce the burden, the margin in the deficit budget. So anything about revenue is part of it. That this tax percentage revenue is part of the incentives to ensure that people meet the commitments of their tax.
Well, talking about getting some other forms of revenue, there's a story just above the masthead. Here's federal government targets 939 billion naira from oil block licenses renewal.
Okay.
That's another one there.
That's another one.
Okay. Now let's move to the bottom of the page. That's front page now. About 3 stories are there. Al-Zazaki's fate is not in El-Rufai's hands. IMN replies AGF. More details about that on page 7. Then my daughter was buried on church premises. This is coming from a Lagos State University student's father. You find that on pages 4 and 5. Then the Abuja robbery over the weekend said suspects allegedly indict bank employees.
I like Bayo. There's a story Blessing read also, just by a little above the nameplate of the Punch, speaking about refineries not processing, any crude oil in 3 months.
That's a big challenge because if you have a refinery, refineries process crude oils, especially the 2 categories of refineries we have. There are the ordinary refineries, and there are also the petrochemicals. Yes. The petrochemicals do more elaborate processing into other oil and other byproducts. But where the raw material for refining is not available, which is crude oil, then the refinery certainly cannot work. So that seriously is a challenge. I don't know how that came about, but that is seriously a challenge.
For 3 months, well.
The story about the robbery, it happened at Mbappe, and it happened on Saturday. A bank worker was there loading the automatic teller machine when 4 robbers just went in there and held him. Alarm was raised, and a combination of the police and the brigade of guards went there to the rescue. Apparently, one of the robbers was shot, and the 3 others were arrested. But investigation from the police indicate that they were invited by employees of the bank to carry out the raid. And even a lawyer is already commenting that he's lamenting that this is a violation of Section 281 of the Constitution, that the Brigade of Guard have no business going to help in arresting robbers. It is the duty of only the police.
Yes, but the police needed backup.
But
the police needed
the Brigade
backup.
of Guard will tell you that anything that disrupts the peace in Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory, apart from the villa and the presidency, is a matter of their concern.
And besides, the Brigade of Guards is just a stone throw from where the incident happened.
In Mbappe, yes.
In Mbappe area. Anyway, we give kudos to the combined team that folds that attempt. Bayo, let's again look at some of the trending stories on the front page of the Daily Trust. 20 states cut 2020 budgets by over 733 billion naira, and that's despite minimum wage agreement. Details of that you can find on page 3. Now, this is an interesting one too. El Zakzaki's fate not in El Rufai's hands. IMN tells Malami. The details of that you can find on page 6. And there are other stories trending at the foot of the paper. APC, PDP tango over unemployment rate. Details of that on page 49. And this also bizarre story, how mother, son conspired with cleric to kill final year student. That's on page 4. And we also have a story on the return of January to December budget cycle. Bayo, 20 states cutting 2020 budgets by over 700 despite minimum wage agreements. Well,
a budget is a plan of expenditure, and you plan based on the resources that you are expecting. If, however, resources are not forthcoming, naturally, your budget will be reduced. But the area that interests me about the state budget is another report that shows that 15% of budget that is required for health, you only have about 7 states that have complied with that. Leadership actually did a survey, and they found out that there is what is called the Abuja Declaration, where Nigeria and other African countries signed to ensure that 15% of budget is allocated for health. And in this survey, they found that only 7 states in the Federation have complied. The 7 are the 4 that I like to describe as key states: Kano, Katsina, Kaduna, and Kwara. The others are Bauchi, Rivers, and Edo. And leadership also went on to say that from all the states of the Federation, in the 2020 budget at their physical allocation, when you look at it very critically, what you find there is that they all have not complied with the Abuja Declaration. And that declaration...
The states you read are those that have complied.
Only the 7 that have complied.
And Lagos State is not there.
It's not there. And so what you are saying is that, apart from that, they found out that when it comes to health allocation, it is the Northeast that is second, with the Northeast was the first, Southwest and Northwest and Southwest are second. The first is South-South. It allocated 129 billion to health. Northwest and South-South allocated 105 billion to health, while Northeast, which everybody knows has a lot of challenges following from the challenge from insurgency, allocated 86.5 billion for health. The North Central allocated 64 billion. The Southeast has the least, 48 billion for health. And the argument is that if you need an economy that should have to be pushed and striven, you need to make provisions for health, because they say health is wealth.
That's correct.
Do you have other stories?
No, I think
there's this human interest story I like to point out. The police had arrested a 23-year-old student of Crown Polytechnic in Ekiti State for alleged rape. The 23-year-old and his accomplice, who is at large, used a gun and held 2 students of the same polytechnic at gunpoint, took them to an abandoned building, and forcefully forced themselves onto them. The police have arrested one of them, and they are looking for the other. So you can imagine when a student goes to tertiary institution to learn to be of good character and conduct and education, they resort to criminality. It's shocking to find such instances in tertiary institutions.
I don't know if it's the same person, because there's a story how mother son conspired with cleric to kill final year student in, and this is in Ogun State.
This one is in Ekiti State.
This is Ogun State.
The other one story we had is on from Lagos State.
Lagos State, no. And the cleric was identified. Well, he was identified, and the other accomplices as well, to kill the final year student of sociology in Lagos State University, LASU, for ritual purpose.
I think it's the same story.
I know. Ritualism, rape, and everything. I don't know why all these things are going on ascendancy. It's a state of anomy. I think we need to go back to the first unit of society, family.
Yes, and
the kind of orientation we give our children these days, I think.
That speaks to our values.
They get any in the first instance.
Our values. We've lost our values, our moral values.
Parents need to be very strict with the parents, with their children, because our children these days live on the social media. They live on the virtual life, and most of the fantasy they see there they try to practice them. They are not real. They are not real.
All right. The editorial today is taken from the Sun, Daily Sun, and it's captioned "Damning Report on Gas Flaring." Now, the crux of this whole editorial is the fact that huge money is lost as a result of gas flaring and can be adequately, with that the finance, the money from this can be used to develop, other projects in, again, health and education sectors, and also deploy some of the monies made from here to, road infrastructure
and
other.
The sector itself, that's the oil and gas sector, which could actually do a lot.
Yes.
Weren't we just talking about refineries not being processed or not processing crude oil for whatever the reasons? We could advance.
So this editorial, is again reminding us of federal government's zero. I want to read it here. 2020 deadline to achieve zero gas flaring in the country in view of its debilitating effects on the economy, human health, and environment.
You see, when it comes to gas flaring, the goalpost has been shifted several times. Several years in the back, deadline have been fixed and has been moved. But the current administration has indicated that 20% tolerance level for gas flaring. And by way of volume, as much as 233 billion is the worth of what we are losing in gas flaring. If we got that, that could go a long way in enhancing our budget that is already in the deficit area. So the essence is that all over the world, there is a determination to end gas flaring. And the editorial is happening on the fact that Nigeria must take that issue very seriously so that we can not only realize the revenue and also plow back that gas for domestic use and other usages.
I think for environmental check and health as well.
I see visible signs of commitment to achieving the zero gas flaring, by this administration especially, and I say that because of the activities of the gas commercialization program initiative of the federal government, and they've really gone a long way. I think it's just a few more hurdles to climb before we are done with that.
Well, we wish them Godspeed, because part of the plan initially was also to have gas stations across the country, so that you have pipelines across, so that people with domestic gas, you can use them for domestic cooking instead of falling back on firewood and damaging our forests and exposing us to a greenhouse effect.
Yes, I hope in the new year we'll get the minister of Petroleum to come speak, because this is an aspect of the industry that is very close to his heart.
Petroleum states, you mean?
Yes, of course. All right, you're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service. Baya, I would like to thank you once again.
Thank you too.
We'll see you tomorrow, hopefully. Don't go on a wall. All right, we'll be right back. Stay with us.
They swore an oath to serve our fatherland and defend the people. They traded their freedom, comfortable homes, and mortgaged their lives on the battleground for our unity and peaceful living. These are the great, fearless, loyal, and committed Nigerian armed forces who risked their lives courageously to safeguard our borders. But in the line of duty, many never returned. Nigerians, arise with pride to support the incapacitated and families of our fallen heroes.
It is a lead befitting to honor the memory of the gallant hearts and men who paid the supreme sacrifice to keep the country united.
President Muhammadu Buhari enjoins all ministries, parastatals, religious and corporate bodies to donate generously to the Emblem Appeal Launch. Send your donations to these accounts. Account name, Emblem Appeal Launch. Account number 393-200-7526. EcoBank Nigeria PLC.
Treat your family to a cereal that's made from the natural goodness of maize and soya protein and specially combined with Grain Smart, a smart combination of vitamins and iron, so that they have the right kind of energy to help them reach their full potential and turn the simple into amazing. Eat up and carry go, because nothing do you. Golden Morn, make every day amazing.
Nestle, good food, good life.
Nigeria is our country, and it's the only country we have. irrespective of religion, tribe, the heroes of our past did their best to take Nigeria to where it is today. It will be unfortunate, I repeat, unfortunate, absolutely, if we don't keep Nigeria intact. We must put our differences behind. We must let everybody know that human beings cannot live together without some differences. But at the end of the day, our country is Nigerian. It must always come first.
Get ready for the Unity Challenge reality TV show. Coming soon.
What we are really cultivating here is a better future for all Nigerian women, and it's not always easy. Panadol Extra relieves headache, backache, joint pain, toothache, and menstrual pain. The pain is worth it.
You're still watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of Africa's largest television network, the NTA. Yeah, today, as we already indicated, we'll continue with a review of excerpt from, we have excerpt from our topical conversations in the course of the outgoing year 2019.
All right. Now, I'm sure you remember the phrase, kill corruption or corruption will kill you. Well, it's become synonymous with this present administration. But actually, this administration started, the fight against corruption just before it assumed, power in 2015. And it's a corruption that, it's a fight that has been extensive. It has been acknowledged both nationally, internationally, and within the African Union. And it also, for that reason, that President Muhammadu Buhari was again elected on the platform of the AU as the first ever anti-corruption champion. But again, we've seen quite a number of, progress made, forfeitures in terms of financial, monetary, and property. There have been criticisms as well from the other end. And so on Good Morning Nigeria, we assembled, those we think should be able to give us a better evaluation of progress made so far. And one of those guests on that edition was Bolaji Owasonye. And for that edition, Blessing and Kingsley presented. So let's see what they got to say in terms of evaluating the anti-corruption fight of this present administration.
How far will the fight against corruption?
Okay, thank you very much. I think that it is safe to say that we're not where we used to be. We're not particularly where we ought to be, but it would be unfair and uncharitable to say that we are where we were in 2015. First of all, there is a high level of consciousness about what corruption has done to us. The president had taken the unprecedented step of, for example, exposing corruption in defense sector. This is something that hardly has happened in any country because that sector is usually, but because of the effect, the president opened up that sector. We've seen a clearer understanding in terms of approach for asset recovery, which is one of the major measures for tackling corruption globally. Because where you have systemic and endemic corruption, especially in the digital economy, assets move very fast, okay? And tracing and being able to hold offenders down is a bit more difficult. But Nigeria has escalated and really grounded that principle, especially in Africa, that asset recovery is a major component of the fight against corruption and all that. Thirdly, President Buhari has been able to put strong political will behind the measure of improving the situation with regard to diminishing corruption in revenue and expenditure side of government.
By the time corruption is minimized, the resources are allowed to flow fairly and equitably, then possibility is many of the social problems we are confronting as a nation are going to fizzle out. But so long as a tiny few in this country will corner the resources of the country for themselves, at the expense of the lives of other people, then there can be peace. So I must say that Nigerians are becoming aware that corruption does not pay. Corruption has consequences. Consequences for those who are looting and consequences for the majority of the population. Therefore, eradicating corruption is a win-win situation for everybody. The government will fight it. If it is done successfully, the elite benefit, the poor people benefit. Why? Because the elite will live in peace, sleep with their two eyes closed. The common man will get what they deserve. But in a situation where the resources are cornered, as we see it happening over time, the possibility is there will be rebellious tendencies as we are seeing today.
Within the past couple of, if I use 2019 as an analogy, between January and May 15, 2019, the EFCC has made substantial arrests. We commenced an operation that we called it Operation Cyberstorm. And virtually everybody, if you go through the dailies, you would have been aware of the number of arrests that has been made all over the Federation. And within that period, a number of Nigerians involved in internet scam have been arrested, have been prosecuted, have been convicted, and scam illicit properties have been confiscated and have even been returned back to victims of foreign nations involved. People out there believe that, oh, it's just Yahoo boys, but they don't seem to understand that the kind of internet scam we are having now is a kind of reinvigorated, in quotes, refined internet scam, wherein these boys are engaging in what is known as CEO, BEC internet scam, business executive compromise, hacking into the emails of multinational nations, intercepting their mails, and as a result, being able to manipulate their financial transactions, which they now transmit through their allies in various nations and eventually launder into Nigeria. So it's not the ordinary kind of Yahoo as we used to know it then. The one we are having now is a much more pronounced. And this is why within the past couple of months, the Commission too, in relation to that resurgence, has gone out full force. So we've made substantial arrests. We are still making substantial arrests. As of last week, 28 persons were arrested by our office in Ibadan. The Abuja zonal office too made substantial arrests on Friday. So almost on a weekly, daily basis, we are arresting people involved in various kinds of economic and financial crimes. And besides, many Nigerians, because they believe in the capacity of the Commission, keep bringing in petitions on a daily basis across the 14 zonal offices of the Commission, as well as the head office in Abuja, and we are treating them.
First, acknowledge the fact that this government have put anti-corruption fight as a priority. That, again, has strengthen the fight against corruption in Nigeria. The fact that the government came into power on the basis of the fact that they recognize that corruption is a huge problem and is an obstacle to development is something that we must also commend the government for. And in terms of assessing the government where we are with the fight against corruption, there are two things we must recognize. First, that the government recognizes the fact that corruption is a huge problem is something we must commend the government for. Then two is about mobilizing the people to also support the fight against corruption, because fighting against corruption is not what government alone can do. You need the people, you need the system, you need the international community, particularly on the ground corruption we're talking about. The corruption that is actually affecting Nigeria is not just the small petty corruption, but we have huge corruption in the country. And that for me is something that we must also recognize, that in terms of asset recovery, which this government have demonstrated that there is level of transparency and accountability. For instance, the Abuja 2 that has happened, the $322.5 million that was recovered from the Swiss government that is currently being disbursed across the entire country is the first of its kind in this part of the world.
Yes, that was one edition talking about fight against corruption, 4 years on for the administration. And it was a very enlightening edition for me, as well as the guest, I guess, alongside Kingsley. We actually took people down memory lane, taking a look at what the administration have been able to do in the last 4 years, and also the fight. And I'm sure some of those things paid off, because we've seen several aspects of arrest and some other aspects of
Very
people being
high-profile cases,
exactly.
yes.
So persons, politically exposed persons, as well as some other individuals.
Bless it, it's not just fighting corruption. The fight has also been extended to the public sector, and that is why you see some policies that were introduced to check corruption at its root. Policies like, for instance, the introduction of the BVN, the whistleblower, the IPPIS, of course, which was introduced or strengthened to streamline, the payment system in the public service. So these are some of the, high points of that edition. Blessing.
All right, let's move on. Now, the governor and deputy governor of states in Nigeria are elected on a joint ticket to deliver democracy dividends to the people. But then it appears there's a trend for deputy governors to be relegated to the background. In fact, on that particular edition, it said they're called like spare tires, and in the scheme of things in high-wired politics in the country.
Indeed, that edition actually was captioned, we're looking at unbroken 20 years of unbroken democratic governance in Nigeria. Now, usually, democracy is appraised under 4 elements. Of course, that will be the political system, the people's participation in it, the rule of law, and of course, the human rights issues. But on Good Morning Nigeria, we also looked at the role of the deputy governors in deepening our democratic experience, as well as the challenges that they had to grapple with. Again, we have excerpts of that edition, anchored by Kingsley and Bleh, as I call her, Blessing.
The role of deputy governors in our 20 years of democracy, unbroken democracy. I want to start by thanking the Almighty God for sustaining us and enabling us to go through 20 years of unbroken democracy. God has been faithful to Nigeria. Unfortunately, our governors have been most unfortunate to their deputy governors. On a general note, there are very, very few exceptions. And I call it most unfortunate because during the campaign or the lobbying to have a deputy governor, it's been so beautiful, cozy, and we work as a team. Just because one wants, they simply want to use you. The moment victory comes and we get into office, it's like a different scene altogether. I will talk about my own case, and it's most shameful and embarrassing because our team during the campaign, we were like one family, and everybody knows it. I happen to be the first female elected in the whole of northern Nigeria. It's the Lord's doing. And it's not that I lobbied for it. It's not that I begged for it. But he knew why he wanted to have me. And God gave us victory. Unfortunately, the victory or the promises was not maintained. And the main thing is, when governors listen to people who want to come between you and your deputy, they create problem. But if you are sincere and God-fearing and you are faithful to your promise, knowing who your deputy was, and when you requested to work with that person, you should be able to maintain and keep that promise and be faithful. The way deputy governors are treated to the background, it's so unfortunate that they are simply used as spare tires. And if that continues, it's not healthy for our democracy. And I just wish that the Constitution, the National Assembly should look into this matter, because that role of a deputy governor that should be complementary to the governor has to be properly addressed, or else we are just deceiving ourselves and deceiving the people. The frustration deputy governors go through is so much, and I pray that this trend should be addressed in the interest of our democracy.
The role of deputy governors is very important. If you go to part 2, section 176, 186, and maybe up to 197, you will see that the establishment of the office of governor and the validity for election depends on the nomination of an associate as a running mate, an associate. But that, the mentality is not that of, an associate is more of a partner. Nobody can become a governor because the ticket is joint, unless there is a deputy gubernatorial candidate. That ticket will be invalid. And so, in choosing a deputy governor, a lot of things come to play. It has to do with where the deputy governor comes from, depending on where the governor vis-a-vis, you know, the balancing arrangement, how popular and how acceptable. In some cases, some deputy gubernatorial candidates are even more popular. And that is why political parties most times tend to suggest and submit to nomination of one of those that even aspired or contested for the governorship position. It is wrong and not correct to say that it's not vied for. It is vied for seriously.
Because of the ticket of the governors.
Yes. No, but the deputy gubernatorial candidate ticket is vied for. People lobby, people go for it, people present money and say, I will support with this, I'll do this. And so a lot are put into consideration before someone is accepted or nominated as a running mate. Okay. Initially, when the state assemblies tended to, you know, have some effectiveness, two things happened. One, where the state assembly is reasonable enough and more robust and considerate, there were issues of, no, you can't do this with the deputy governor's office or that. But where the state assembly has functionaries or principal officers who are interested in that office, like in my state, yes, we are human beings. When you work together, there must be some disagreements, but this is an associate, a partner. If you look at it that way, in my state, we had situations where some members of the state assembly were interested in occupying that office of deputy governor. So they joined the normal, you know, one of the biggest industries in this business of politics is rumor. People will sit down, they take it as conspiracy, but negative conspiracy without considering the state and the people, where they now conspire and send people, appoint people, you go and tell the governor this, you go and tell the deputy governor this. People work very hard to inaugurate a war between the governor and the deputy governor.
I think the Constitution needs a redress. So, but despite the fact that looking at the Chapter 6, Part 2, Section 193 of the Nigerian Constitution, you come to understand that the first provision is that the governor may, in his discretion, assign the governor. So, sorry, the deputy governor, you know, to carry out some responsibilities, especially in the administration of a particular department, or may call or shall call for a regular meeting just to help in deciding, directing, and advising on policies that affect the state government or even on the executive functions of the governor. So you can see that the limitation, the political horizon fixed within the territory of the deputy governor has been defined by the Constitution. So all these particular limitations, but if the Constitution should be adhered to, respected, as well as followed, the deputy governor should be able, even in the performance of the function of advising, okay, administration, okay, redirecting the policies of the state government, should have something to play. But we come to understand that there is a kind of inherent psychological human limitation to this particular regard. Why? Is because human nature, man doesn't like competition. And when you bring the governor and the deputy governor, there is that particular fear of competition. Then look, this deputy governor might redirect popular support. And by the end of the day, you see that he might be taking the credit. Well, I'm the #1 citizen in the state, then the deputy governor might have it all. So I think I shouldn't give him such responsibilities for him to even perform well, so that I will not actually lose that particular power, which I have the ambition for running for consecutive 8 years. Then secondly, you discover that some deputy governors are more educated, more enlightened, even, have that particular quality of leadership and political charisma. So this phobia develops in the minds of the governors, that if I should allow the deputy governor to carry on, dealing with the state affairs, and the people come to recognize him, reckon with him, then he's going to have a kind of political tsunami when after the first tenure, elapses. So I think this phobia also develops, among the governors. So by not really trying to give that particular chance for the deputy governors to perform and discharge their own functions. Then apart from this, there is also this issue of mistrust. The journey so far starts, let's say, perfectly, but, in the long run, just as they mentioned, rumors, because there are people who really want to explore more, within the state of governance. So they keep, merging issues, trying to create problems.
All right, that was the edition on 20 years of unbroken democracy in Nigeria, and specifically that edition focused on the role of deputy governors. And blessing, considering the fact that the deputy governors do not have rules assigned to them constitutionally, what was the solutions preferred by the guest?
Well, like one of the guests as I actually said, it's not a competition. You're actually supposed to complement one another. That sometimes you have deputy governors that are actually more in the public's eye than the governor himself or herself. That's if we've ever had a female governor. And for them, it's just that, okay, ideas could come. It's for us to support one another, not to be seen as enemies in the scheme of things. The bottom line is that the people must be served as you have already come together on one joint ticket. You must serve the people.
The dividends of the
democracy must reach the people, irrespective of your differences, but you must present that common
and I heard that one of the doctors from the University of Abuja there, talk about probably a need to legislate the role of the deputy governors to make it even more, formal, so that everybody knows his or her, schedule of duties.
Exactly.
All right, that was that edition. Now, another interesting edition that caught our attention on Good Morning Nigeria was the rising cost of election litigations. And by cost here, we mean the cost of,
getting the relevant documents, the cost of filing those documents, the cost of getting your petition, prosecuted, and the cost of even hiring professional legal representations. That caught our attention on Good Morning Nigeria. Another interesting edition. Blessing. Yes, well, what the pros and the cons of the cost of election litigation for our democracy, especially in the polity, we keep going back and forth. People spend more time at the court session rather than coming to do that which they have been been elected to actually do. And the expert lamented the monetization of our politics. Others noted that for the courts to eliminate doubt in the electoral process, some have varied interests and also views. Now let's get to see the excerpt of this edition on the cost of election litigation, anchored by Kingsley and Kieran on the 12th.
From 2011 to 2015 to 2019, we see a rise and fall in election litigation matters before the tribunal, and if so, what is the coloration?
Thank you very much, Kingsley. Yes, there have in recent years been a rise in the number of litigations that we have. That is a good and a bad thing. It's a good thing in the sense that the legal framework has provided for a way of addressing real or perceived grievances. And that is, in cases of elections, that is by way of petitions to the relevant courts. But in talking about petitions, you talk of litigations generally. So we have the pre-election cases, which don't go before the tribunals, but go to the regular courts. Then you have the election cases. So you have to combine both. There has been an increase. Various factors are responsible for this. We've not carried out a study to really ascertain, but we know that now today there are 92 political parties. And each one is entitled to sponsor candidates for elections. And if the party or the candidate is aggrieved, then they have the chance to seek litigation as a way to address those grievances. The courts are there for that. That's the way the legal framework constitution has spelled it out. I'm sure the professor and my seniors will know, senior advocates will know, speak more on that. But basically, because of the number of political parties, the increased knowledge and understanding of how you can use the law to resolve disputes. That is the only known mechanism. Arbitration and non-litigation options are there, but in terms of petitions, for example, that is the statutory way to go. People are not always satisfied with alternative means. And also, so you have aspirants as well. Those are people who did not become candidates, people who are aggrieved because of intra-party disputes, because of issues regarding within their political parties. So whereas in petitions we deal with inter-party, in terms of other litigations, there are intra-party disputes arising from the delegates that elect candidates in the parties, qualification of those candidates within the parties. Maybe they haven't been in the party for long enough, or the powers that be acted contrary to the guidelines of the political parties. So there are many things involved. But the number of political parties, the increased number of political parties, the increased awareness has led to this, and the increased contestation for power amongst aspirants, amongst party members, have also, I think, led to this exponential growth in terms of the number of litigations that we see.
It's a very good development for democracy. Let me tell you the reason. It is better to go via litigation than to take cutlass. It's not better. It means that people are now aware that it is better for them to have their rights determined in a court of law rather than taking the law into their hands. And that is good for us. That means we are advancing politically. We are getting more civilized and more tolerant. It's good. Forget about the cost. The cost of election petitions can never be matched with the cost of violence. Can it? It's a very good omen, and I hope we'll continue like that.
While it is, just as the respected senior Silk has said, it is good that people should take their matters to courts rather than having recourse to violence. That's very good. However, increasing litigation from our elections is not evidence of progress. particularly because what drives those aspirations? What drives the cases? Why are people so desperate to rig elections, to abuse the process, and then look for huge sums of money to make sure that the judicial process responds to, or delivers to them the political office? Why? You see, we need to look at this craze for political office. There's too much money in our politics, and that's what is killing the country. Before elections, you find that there's so much money in circulation. The moment election is over, government is hardly even finding it difficult to fund their budget. I understand security votes, funds that should have been used for development, all of these are channeled to bribe voters, pay for litigation, and all sort of things. So the huge amount of money involved in our politics is the root cause of corruption. Because if a man has spent so much money to buy an election office, an electoral office, either through the election or through the courts, and he gets into office, the first thing is he wants to recoup his investment. So that's what we call political corruption. And that's the root of corruption. Political corruption is the mother of corruption. And that is because of the huge amount of money that politicians must use to get political office. So it does not portend something good for our democracy. We need to deal with the root cause of our problem. You are prosecuting. How many people are you going to prosecute? You only prosecute a few, but the majority go without prosecution. So the evil we are fighting against continues because of the influence of money, big money in politics. We must be able to address that. If we don't address that, this democracy is not going anywhere.
If I'm going to talk from personal experience, it will be a departure from the norms that the larger society are aware of or seems to be aware of. Like we say, my case is different. I've seen so many things, positive, negative, and in some instances, stories that I have to tell will be a departure from what you are used to hearing. Talk of election litigation. Every Nigerian knows what it costs if you want to ask my brother over to the court, my very, very over brother, and people in this. We have a professor of law here. All of us know what the cost is. In the course of my litigation, because I've experienced it on all fronts, I had the full compliments of a minimum of 5 senior advocates of Nigeria. I also had, as small as I am, a reserve list of those who said, look, if things get out of hand, please call on us. It will interest you to know that personally I didn't have to pay a penny. If you take it further, sir, go to the INEC level that seems to have a reputation or notoriety for electoral infractions and what have you in the eyes of the people. I contested election, and I want to say, sir, I never approached INEC or any of its officials. I contested election. People have said the judiciary is corrupt. Our judges, especially those on election matters, seems to be sitting on gold mine. That's the general impression. But I went through litigation from the tribunal to the court of appeal level. I want to say to you, sirs, I never had to pay a penny or attempt to approach any of their lordships. That is why I said, sir, if I have to relate from my own experience, my case is different.
In post-election, all post-election litigations, INEC must be a respondent. That is statutory. The Electoral Act says that anybody who's contesting an election in the tribunal must name the person declared winner and must name INEC. Without those two, the election petition is incompetent. So automatically, and in all pre-election cases, even though there's no statute saying INEC must be a respondent, INEC is invariably always a respondent. They say join INEC because they want INEC to be bound by whatever order is made by the court, and the courts can only bind somebody who is a party before it or is previous. So in all election-related litigations, even whether a person is qualified or not qualified, INEC is, whether INEC has a say, a right, or did anything wrong or not, INEC is always a respondent. Now that puts a very heavy burden on the commission. We have relatively small, it's expanding, relatively small but very vibrant legal department that has produced several senior advocates of Nigeria. We're very proud of what they do. But they are stretched. They're indeed stretched. There are some states that have over 100 litigations and we only have 1 or 2 lawyers. And we have to bring people from outside, from Abuja, from outside of the state, just to cope. When, as everybody here said, election petitions are time-bound. And it's such that sometimes you have days to file processes, to gather evidence, to interview your witnesses, to get their statements. And in all these cases, you have written statements on oath. So not only do you have to gather hundreds, the honorable member mentioned, Honorable Shaba mentioned a governorship petition. In a presidential election, the onus covers so many states. And you have to bring evidence. And sometimes people say, INEC is not cooperating. People ask for a register. While you're asking for that register was used for several elections. So somebody in Enugu might be asking for a register. In Sokoto, they're asking for that same register. The presidential panel is asking for the same register in Abuja. But you must look at this register, certify each page, and they go into thousands of pages. You must personally, and the Supreme Court has said that we found a clever way of dealing with it and say we'll just make a rubber stamp and somebody stamps, I've certified the thing, it's mine. But the Supreme Court said, no, that's not correct. You must personally sign every page of that document. And I'm talking of literally hundreds of thousands.
I totally agree with my brother that election petitions are too technical. I started with the election petition in 1983, but up till now, each time election petitions are brought to me, I have to start reading again. It's a very terrible thing. And I will have to start reading like primary school again. And sometimes, believe in me, sometimes you don't have time to bath. And it's unnecessarily cumbersome. And I think especially our people in the legislative houses have to make these things easier so that whoever has a complaint doesn't need to go through all these strict legal adherence before they can get justice. It's too technical. I have always delivered papers in Ghana, and I told them, look, once somebody says, I don't agree with the election issue, you may give him a month, but don't throw it out on technical ground. Hear him and determine it. But unfortunately, we don't have that in this country at all. It's so technical, it's time bound, where you ought to sign or the other party does not sign and so on, it's thrown out. It is too technical that we need to do something quickly about it. And one of the easiest ways is to go by the Ways Commission report.
Senior Advocate Eunice Ustaz Usman there, very, very enlightening discussion. Blessing, of course.
A gathering of the learned fellow. You keep learning,
You keep learning every day. And of course, we learned that the cost of election litigation could be Blessing as high as 400,000. That there was a case in a particular state, I think Anambra State, that was cited. But they also said that it could also rise between 1 million and 1.5 million.
Sometimes you don't even want to hear the figure.
You don't even want to hear the figures. So he said for him, it's a technical thing. And there has to be an easy way of going about it. And one of the ways, the guest talked about is come up with a political system that is rigging free, so to speak, so that you don't have so many litigations at the end of every electionary period.
Yes, sure.
That was that interesting edition.
Very, very interesting. And rising above all forms of I must be the place of leadership by all means, at all costs. This is what we should actually look into.
Exactly.
If you've gone to the polls and the people say, no, it's not yet your turn, or no, this is whom we're going to vote for, why don't we just move on and save the cost for different things as well as get democracy working?
Spot on, by Blessing. Now let's start this way. The Niger Delta is prided as the goose that lays the golden eggs, of course, in the country, end quote. And since the discovery of crude oil in the 1950s at Oloibiri precisely, there has been agitations by people of the Niger Delta region, for more provision of facilities to cushion the effects of so many things. Environmental hazards arising, as we said much earlier on, from oil explorations and, of course, oil flaring. And this edition was prompted basically by criticisms of various sorts. Now, as you have already pointed out, billions have been devoted, much money has been devoted to the Niger Delta development through statutory agencies. And now, this does not actually not reflect in the landscape of the region. This development prompted President Muhammadu Buhari to call for an audit of funds allocated for Niger Delta development. And on Good Morning Nigeria, it was discussed as managing resources of the Niger Delta on the 29th of October this year. And that edition was presented by Kingsley and Jumai.
The state of the Niger Delta is one that is fairly obvious to all. That it's said to be the nation's cash cow, but it remains an open wound. And this is in spite of various interventions that have come on over the decades, as highlighted in our background. What is wrong with the Niger Delta, Senator?
Well, the Niger Delta is its own enemy. Government realized that the Niger Delta is a special area, and a lot of interventions have been done on PADEC, up to NDDC, up to 13% derivation for the states, up to the creation of the Ministry of Niger Delta in 2008. But what have we gotten? Most of the people who had administered all these agencies of government are from the Niger Delta. What have they done for their people? I keep on wondering why people should take as much as 13% derivation and do nothing for their people that you can see. The same thing with NDDC. I could remember as a member of the NDDC committee at the National Assembly in the Senate. I could remember one particular year where over 400 billion was allocated and budgeted for the NDDC. Go there today, what will you find? I think we are the enemies of ourselves.
Senator Abe.
Well, thank you very much. Let me say that this is a discussion that every Niger Delta son and daughter will be very, very interested in. The truth of the matter is that the problem is complex. First of all, I believe that a clear understanding of the mandate and expectation of the Commission is necessary. Because you find out that a lot of times when people get there, they think their obligation is to keep the oil flowing. That is not the purpose of the NDDC. So you find the NDDC making payments, quote and unquote, under the guise of keeping the boys happy. You have things like water hyacinth contracts. What is water hyacinth contracts? Many, many years ago, there was a time when these water hyacinth plants, took over the creeks and you couldn't even move your boats. And government decided to clear that water hyacinth by physically getting people to remove those plants. Since then, even in the years where there is no single water hyacinth, you'll find NDDC awarding contracts in lots of 3 million to each person to go and clear water hyacinth, which everybody in the Niger Delta knows is a fraud. But it happens almost every year, and we keep quiet. All because they are under the guise that it is their responsibility to pay these boys so that oil will keep flowing. I think that the time has come for us to have a clear understanding of the direction and purpose of the Commission. If it is to provide a livelihood, infrastructure, lasting infrastructure for the Niger Delta, then the political direction of the Commission needs to be very clear. And that's why I would like to, although it's early days yet, but I'd like to commend the vibrations that we're getting from the supervising ministry at this time, because it is clear that they understand this need to reposition the direction of the Commission. So I think that understanding of the core mandate and purpose of the Commission and reducing, or I'm not even against the political interference, but the interference should be targeted towards the agreed direction. when you have interference, political interference in the commission that is targeted towards the wrong direction, that's the problem of the NDDC, basically.
Senator Itainenk.
Yeah, I think that the Niger Delta development has been a question where the Niger Deltans owe the Niger Delta more than Nigeria owes the Niger Delta. Because the federal government has tried to provide as much as it ought to. Not enough though, but whatever is provided has a problem of being well utilized. First is the 13% derivation. Second is the abolition of the onshore-offshore. You remember before the abolition of the onshore-offshore dichotomy, a state like Akwa Ibom was receiving about 800 million naira a year. I mean a month rather. But today it receives between 17 to 22 billion, and yes, a month. And other states also which have oil offshore. That is for the abolition of the 13%. Then you have the Ogoni cleanup investment. Then you have the amnesty program. You know, that one last year had 65 billion. This year it has 65 billion provided. Then you have the Niger Delta Development Commission. And in all this, when you go to see what has been provided on the ground, the worst accounted for is that of the 13% derivation which goes to the states. That one, the state governors, in actual fact, with the greatest respect, do not properly seem to appreciate the essence for which it was meant. Now, most states, a few states have what they call State Oil Mineral Producing Areas Development Commission, which they ought to target some of the monies that they make from the, they derive from the 13% derivation to the development of the oil producing communities. But you see, it doesn't go there enough. Some of them believe that the NDDC would, provide in those oil producing areas, whereas the 13% derivation perhaps is used in the urban. And when they set up the Oil Mineral Producing Areas Commission in their respective states, they don't particularly fund it or draw attention to what it ought to be. Therefore, I believe that flowing from what we've seen thus far and what we've discussed here, we need to have a retreat, a new conversation on the Niger Delta Development Commission. Now, when we considered the Petroleum Industry Bill in the House of Representatives and when we considered in the Senate, there was this question of where and how should the monies that goes to the Niger Delta be spent? Should it be spent on the oil-producing states or should it be spent on the oil-producing areas? Agreed. You have to develop the urban or the areas of the states to have access to the areas where oil is produced. Now, there should be a situation where a target or targeted development is made to the oil-producing areas. And I believe that if you make targeted development to oil-producing areas, you may not need to say, look, I want to settle the boys, because what you call the boys, they have grown into men. Now, the men will now be active and busy enough, one. Two, they'll be educated. Like, I normally like giving example of a Belema community where we went some weeks ago, and we saw that in 2019, they're asking for a primary school. And they're asking for a health center. Yeah. So the states should also work with the Niger Delta Development Commission and the other bodies. And there should be a coordination. And thank God the ministry now and our office is now asking and working towards coordination of all the activities. So there should be a coordination of the activities of the states, activities of the NDDC, activities of the amnesty, so that, and the ministry, so that it will not be that a ministry is trying to do this, the commission is trying to do this, and so on. And in the end, nothing seems seen as having been done.
I must thank NTA for this conversation, because it's very important for us to be able to put this in public space so that there is a response. Your question again, there is no silence from civil society in the last 20 years. I personally have been involved in revenue transparency campaign in the region for the past 20 years. And I'm sure that our friends that are there will attest to the fact that they have seen this face every time speaking about the need for revenue transparency. What has happened, sir, is that, like I said earlier on, there is a culture of impunity. Even if we raise our voice, nothing happened. It didn't start today, it didn't start yesterday. Until we reverse this culture that when somebody is exposed, there must be consequence. In the absence of consequence that have brought us where we are today. The evidence of what has happened in the region that few political elites are taking advantage of the weak system, either at the state level or at the federal level. The evidence is there. But what has happened is that we have not been able to muster the political will to bring to justice. And that's where the issue of the recent executive's cease order that the president initiated in the last regime, in the last tenure, in his first tenure, is very important in the context of Niger Delta. The resources that have been stolen from the NDDC are there in the public. For example, those buildings you see in Abuja, you see in Port Harcourt, you see in all the places, are money traced to NDDC contract. And I completely agree that there's need to be consensus, there's need to be new thinking, there's need for a new norm. And in moving forward for this new norm, there should be understanding on how we can get it implemented. And so civil society are very willing, and that's why I want to again use this opportunity to say that we, civil society in the Niger Delta, are very willing to be part of this forensic audit. We, the citizens of the Niger Delta, we want to be part of this forensic audit. It should not be top-down approach. It should be bottom-up approach. The citizens have evidence. They have empirical evidence of where the money is. They know those who have stolen the money from NDDC. They can provide evidence to those experts. Those experts fly in from Abuja to Port Harcourt to Warri. They probably will not have the real evidence. So we, the citizens, like I earlier on mentioned, have provided evidence. We have carried out research. We have shown documents where this problem really lies. But what has really happened that has continued to put us where we are today is that there is no response from our cry. The EFCC, ICPC need to be empowered to be able to take decision, because the only way either political elite or civil servants in NDDC can stop what they are currently doing, it is when there is consequence. Once there is consequence, people will stop the behavior. And the only way to change the current behavior, the current norm, which is unacceptable and which is the current practice, the patron-client system, it is only when there is alternative. And the only way to drive that alternative is what the president have just started by announcing, calling for an independent forensic audit. And I want to again thank the minister for again providing us some insight on the directions of this forensic audit. But I'd like to put in the public domain that the only way the forensic audit can actually provide solution in the next few days or few months or few weeks is for the people of Niger Delta to be part of this audit. Let them play a role, so that there is ownership. We all agree that without ownership, there's no way you can ensure development. A forensic audit carried out and supervised in Abuja without the people involvement will not provide any solution to the region, because the people within the region, which you call the civil society, have evidence. The contractors that are involved, they know them. And the political elites that are involved, they know them.
They know them.
They know,
they know them.
David, your friend.
Yes, Reverend David Ugolo there, alongside other eminent personalities from the region.
Yes.
We're talking about development, really, the litany of projects, unending projects.
The Niger Delta.
In the Niger Delta, actually.
You know, the ended this because the last conversation basically was on the forensic audit of the NDDC specifically. And according to what we hear, research, is that since 2000, when NDDC, was established, that over
or thereabout 15 trillion naira, in terms of fund, have been injected into the commission. And yet the criticism is that you don't see any visible structure on ground to reflect the amount of money that has come into the region. But again, we must point out that the Niger Delta area is quite difficult to develop, because of its terrain.
You have such regions too across the world. So what is helping development in such parts of the world that we can't do? What's different? We have experts?
Yes, they do. They do have experts, but we cannot take that away. The fact that you require enormous resources, you understand what it will take to develop, for instance, the other parts of the country. It's a child's play compared to what you will need. For instance, in Bayelsa,
Claire,
because of the terrain.
I still agree with her that people must be held accountable, no matter how little. Let's see something starting up.
Precisely.
Anyway, we're not here to do that. To just have to take a look at the review of the different editions. We'll continue with that just after this break.
My name's Mr. Muftau Abiodun Balogun. We started this business 4 years ago, and this is the production outlet where we do about 4,000 to 5,000 birds per day. With the closure of the border recently, we've been experiencing massive surge in demand. Our sales per day now is going to be between 15 to 20,000 birds. We needed to expand all avenues because of the multiplier effect it's creating. And the most interesting thing about this closure is that many of my farmers today are farmers we recruited recently, and they are young graduates. What the government is doing will lead us right. And I can tell you, if the government sustains this thing, sky will not even be our limit.
Don't you people sell imported materials here? As beautiful as the shop is.
Auntie, buying foreign goods does not help our economy. Neither does it boost local production. And the good thing is Nigerian-made products are high quality. And to make Nigeria great again, that is why I only sell made in Nigeria products. Because change begins with me.
I'm convinced.
Change begins with me too. Change begins with me.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
What we are really cultivating here is a better future for all Nigerian women, and it's not always easy. Panadol Extra relieves headache, backache, joint pain, toothache, and menstrual pain. The pain is worth it.
Welcome back. Well, review continues now. Now, the issue of suicide has continued to be a disturbing phenomenon, especially the dimension among the youth believed to be the bedrock of the society. Now, in fact, the World Health Organization posted a figure of people who died due to suicide at about 800,000 globally, which translates to one person every 40 seconds. Now, that is disturbing, really.
Very disturbing. That's even on a global level a blessing. If we bring it back home, the statistics we have, let me just read it out. Okay, let's remember the students. The 400 level students from UNN, that of course drank sniper. We also remember the other one too from the same university that also drank sniper. We remember the one from, I think it was Lasso or so, or no, Uniben, that failed, is it his or her MBA?
Several of them. Not just even the tertiary institution.
Exactly. And we're told that between January, that's the first quarter of this year, we had recorded over 42 episodes of students who committed suicide. And most times they post, the reaction on social media. So they give,
give you notice on social media, but unfortunately it's usually late by the time it is discovered. So it is because of that rising trend that Good Morning Nigeria devoted the edition of 8th of August 2019 to discuss the matter, suicide on campuses. Now, in that edition, presented by Kieran and Kingsley, experts identified depression, of course, mental health, as some of the causes of the incident and advocated incorporation or perhaps resuscitation of guidance and counseling units in the nation's ivory towers and also in our secondary or primary institutions. Let's listen in to the excerpts.
I think it will be relatively difficult to, put a finger directly, to what we may call the causative factors. And, but there are some developments, some trends, that have established a kind of trajectory that can help us to reconstruct and make a meaning out of the new environment that we have now as the universities in the country. The Nigerian university system has drastically changed in the last 1 to 2 decades. One is population explosion. One is what we may call the death of facilities. A classroom that is constructed to take care of 100 students now, are compared to take care of 300. Some students don't even get to sit inside the classroom itself. They listen to the lectures from outside. And if you go to the hostels, the story is essentially the same. What this tells you is that the university education in the country has exploded in an uncontrolled manner to the point that the students are essentially on their own. And the dean of, I'm happy you brought a dean, and there's also a former dean here, and they can attest that they can no longer keep tab with the individual students. And if you take it down to the departments, the story is essentially the same. What that means is that the lecturers themselves, who ought to go beyond lecturing to become mentors onto these students, don't get to do so. In fact, one-on-one contact the student could have with a lecturer can get as further as final year, when you have to write your projects. That is when you now have supervisors. Before then, you hardly can have anybody really talking to you one-on-one. That is fundamentally a problem.
As Dean of Students, normally, whether University of Benin or elsewhere, the Dean of Students is the chief advisor to all students, particularly the organizations, from the students' union to faculty, to ethnic, to religious, to cultural organizations. The Dean of Students is their chief advisor. And it's also very close to students when it comes to activities that they organize. When students have problems, they try and ensure that they get to the Student Affairs Office to have contact with the personnel that are there to solve their problems before meeting with the dean. Now, as dean, I was able to place students' problems within a particular framework that we describe as SWOT analysis. When students come, try to look at their strengths in what they're talking about. Try to look at their weaknesses. Try to look at the opportunities before them and then the threats. Today, we realize that many students, they are unduly influenced by their peers, unduly. And so the pressure is, if my peers get this, will I also get it? If they graduate, will I also graduate? And so when they fail a particular course or fail some courses that would take them back 1 year, not to graduate, then they think the world has come to an end, which is not so. Again, students are unable to manage their problems. As Dean of Students, I noticed that students, they are looking for somebody that will listen to them. They're looking for someone to confide in. They're looking for someone to trust. Virtually all students. wherever they are, whether at the faculty level, at the student departmental level, even within their unions. They're looking for somebody to talk to concerning their problems. And when you don't find such persons, they see if they could get it from their peers. If their peers are responding negatively, their thoughts are also likely going to be very negative. And that is why we have this challenge of understanding the psychology of students. As Dean of Students, for example, it also tried to look at students from the psychological point of view. If we could, adopt a kind of psychotherapy to dealing with their problems, to consult with the counseling unit, to consult with the teaching hospital, doctors and medics, to find out if they could solve student problems. Like you rightly observed, the thought of suicide is not overnight. It takes a long time. And that thought leads to depression. That depression leads to frustration. That frustration finally leads to what is life all about.
I want to see it more of a societal problem, more than institutional. For example, we have just 2 cases at the University of Ibadan, and one of them happened to be love lost between the students and the parents. The student felt that the parents were not taking good care of her, and the only way for her was to attempt suicide. We thank God that she was able to survive it. And the other one, which happened just last weekend, happened to be that the student borrowed money from a friend and was unable to pay. And the friend was putting pressure on him, and he felt that the only way out would be to commit suicide. We thank God that the situation was actually savage. He was brought to Jaja, that's our service, and from there to usage. Right now, he's recuperating, also being, under the observation of the psychiatric doctors, so as not to have the recurrence of what happened. As I said, that it might be societal. When you have parents not actually having a very good rapport with their their children, when you have a gap, love lost between them, then something can happen. For example, something like that happened about 2 or 3 years ago at a secondary school. It was reported that young boy committed suicide because he felt that the parents didn't love him. So, and then when you think of institutions, generally, you have pressures. And right from the beginning, when you have students coming into the institution, there should be good orientation, whereby they will have access to the management. For example, in the University of Ibadan, when you have orientation, we usually give the students the phone numbers of those they should call at any time they have problems. The phones are everywhere, that of the Vice Chancellor, Dean of Students, Director of Health Services, Security, and so on and so forth. So when you have good rapport with the management, that more or less gives you a good opportunity to avail yourself when you have a problem.
We know that nearly between 80 to 90% of suicide deaths will have implicated a mental health condition, and the commonest is depression. Depression is a mood disorder where the person feels extremely sad. This is beyond everyday sadness. The person feels extremely very sad for a very long duration, and it interferes with their day-to-day functioning. Other features of depression that commonly leads to thinking about committing suicide is having low self-esteem, feelings of worthlessness, no longer having any hope in the future. As the forensic psychologist had mentioned, they don't see anything worth living for, and everything in life looks very bleak. And so they begin to ask themselves, also because at that time they experience a lot of emotional pain. That's another misconception that I want our viewers at home to please pay attention to. That when individuals begin to talk about suicide, it's because they are experiencing such intense emotional pain and anguish. They are suffering. But we are more used to physical pain than concepts of emotional and psychological pain. But psychological and emotional pain can be so severe and disabling that it causes the individual to just want an escape route. That let me just sleep and not wake up again and not have to continue to deal with this problem. And this is why depression is the commonest mental health problem that is associated with suicide. Other factors, just to mention very quickly, include substance abuse, includes personality disorders, people who are very impulsive, and then sometimes people with psychosis. These are mental health problems that are usually associated with suicide, but depression is number one, by far and wide.
Well, let's quickly move on because we're running out of time now. The hues and cries over the delayed release of this year's Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination, that's UTME, results also brought to the front burner the dimensions of examination malpractice that still trail the computer-based tests organized by the Joint Admission and Matriculation Board, JAMB.
All right, we had JAMB Registrar Professor Ishak Oloyede and other educational experts discuss the UTME exams and matters arising on Good Morning Nigeria on the 6th of May 2019. And Kieran and Kingsley were the anchors.
What is wrong with this year's UTME?
Thank you very much. I think so many things are right with UTME this year. The reason being that nothing is wrong. What we want to do is to ensure that we improve on what we are doing. And when you discover certain things, you either want to say, oh, let it go, or you want to say, let us address them. I must thank you for this invitation. You have your own purpose, but I also have my purpose as I was coming. I have heard so many things people are saying, and I felt that your invitation is an opportunity for me to quickly clear the air on certain things. With your indulgence, let me say that yes, there might be hiccups here and there, very few of them. But the truth of the matter is that there are premeditated disruption of the CBT centers. I can give an example of somewhere in Kado here where there was said to be a fire, and I rushed there with my officials. Not even a one ceiling, cardboard, what do you call it? This, not one was burnt. And it later turned out to be a route, something done so that some students can rush out, so that mercenaries can come in. And when we got that, in the process of screening, we found somebody who claimed to be a professor, whose daughter was writing the exam right inside the examination hall. So some of the things we call about, we say their disruption are not so. Then again, you have candidates that will say their numbers did not log in. They wanted to log in, they couldn't log in. We have discovered that they are ploy.
You know, generally in a competition, people would want to have undue advantage over others, not just in examination, in sports, in football, in various human endeavors. But what is more important is the monitoring agency. What are the checks and balances you put in place to checkmate these expectations? So at this time, JAMB has come very much alive. It's not that the cheating is more at this time. It's been there over the years. Like I said, if the monitoring agency is committed to its work and said, no, we have to checkmate this, then you have various aspects of varieties of cheating being exposed, starting from the registration. What you said about registration is, remember that registration has a timeline. It's not what you do in 1 day or 2 days. In most cases, JAMB has had cause to extend the registration time. And they cannot continue extending because you have a period you have to take the examination, release the result, and conduct the admission processes. So it's not unusual that you may have some hiccups in some registration centers. And there are many registration centers scattered all over the nation. So if in one place you have problem, you are free to go to some other place. So I don't think anybody can use that as a reason why it's not able to register. But again,
based on the varieties of the cheating we are having, multiple registration and all that, people are devising many reasons why they cannot register, because they want to do various aspects of registration.
My experience is for the 2019. Let me start with the first question, which is my role as the Chief External Examiner. He has started giving the explanation, but I will just go a little bit in detail. As the Chief External Examiner, my first major responsibility is that I appoint all the proctors, those who are the invigilators in the various centers. And I do that without anybody's. It's entirely my own responsibility, and I have to take responsibility for their actions. That free hand has been given to us. Now that means when I do that, I have to go around to ensure that the invigilation is done properly. And I'm also, as the Chief Examiner, also overseeing all the centers.
First of all, most of the institutions we call schools are frauds of the organized crime. You start from there. If you want to do a good job, and like he has identified, some of these CBT centers, including some of them in universities, are frauds for these organized criminals. And they have described it. They have impersonators. They have this. It is including in his agency. I've been reading what he has been doing, including in JAM, because what he's doing now is focusing on the external. He has also identified that there are embedded people. So these are members. They are syndicates. You understand? And for example, these exam centers and so on, or even these schools, because I call them schools of corruption, are they not licensed and registered by our ministries of education? Every year, does a WAEC, for example, not like last year they did a good job, but they didn't have the courage of JAMB to move further. They identified all the cash and carry exam administrators, supervisors, administrators, and so. But what they did, they sent the names back to the ministries. They sweep it under the carpet, and these are members of the organized crime. It's a network because, like he said everything. How can, if it's not organized crime, can one person bring 1.6 million naira and give somebody? They collect it and they share the money. Even in schools, when they do some of these centers, every person has a percentage he takes from what they collect from students, because people pay this money.
Have the security agencies been engaged in this, whether EFCC, ICPC, DSS?
Yes, I must say that this time around, we must thank the heads of the police. I met with the IG. When I saw the enormity of the problem, I had to find my way to the IG, the Comptroller General of the Civil Defense, and they have been very, very fantastic.
All right, welcome back. This is Good Morning Nigeria, and we're looking at review of events that major events in 2019. Thank you. We've got your tweets, some of them. Let's see your reaction so far. Blessing, you've got Ibrahim.
Yes, for Ibrahim Moduaji, 2019 was a great outing for NTA GMN crew, that's Good Morning Nigeria crew, with the most trending topics on national discourse brought on the table for proper analysis. Gains of Nigeria in every way of President Muhammad Buhari's trip to foreign countries where editions are liked must maintain the tempo.
All right, and this one is coming from Daily Jack Solomon, and he says, NTA GMN and crew must be commended for consistency in maintaining the status quo of presenting topics of discourse on daily basis to the hearing of most Nigerians, coupled with the commitment in reading tweets sent by contributors. No other live programs does it like NTA GMN. Now, the following topics of discourse made the 2019 edition outstanding: addressing Nigeria's security challenges, 60 years of television in Nigeria, deconstructing concept of revolution, the travels of Nigerians in diaspora, xenophobia, rising incidents of rape, and appropriate sanction. Thank you, Daily Jack Solomon.
Okay, for Low Alpha C, 2019 editions of Daily Tonic, NTA GMN were very informative and enlightening. The topics trended were very academic and entertaining, as it were.
We'd also like to thank Mike Anyankwo. We've noted your suggestions, and we can rest assured that we'll take care of that. This one is coming from Titus Monday Enoch, and it treats very wonderful programs and topics you have highlighted in 2019. How I wish government would use the opinion of some persons' views from your topics. Government don't need consultants, as Nigerians prefer wonderful and intelligent recommendation in your programs. Well done. NTA GMN team, keep it up.
Okay, Adejimo Paul Olubumi says, in the year 2020 edition of your program, we wish to advise that the program create 2 platforms for and against any policies of government to have a balanced analysis of issues. This will ensure nothing is swept under the carpet, and the most interesting aspect is that a Twitter contribution by some patriotic Nigerians.
And this is from Steve Bond 007. Editions of data overcharged by telecom agent and infrastructure development were great. We can't review without preferring solution. Restructuring, the North can be like Dubai, West can be like London, East can be like Germany, South can be like Netherlands. Thank you. We have one more last one.
Abuja would be like where now?
Well, this is the last one is
Center.
coming from Comrade Ngala, and he says, year 2019 had lots of challenges, and he prays that we witness year 2020 with a lot of blessing and peaceful Nigeria. Thank you very much for all your tweets. Very wonderful prayer there.
Yes. Okay, and that will be it for today's review. Tomorrow is another time to join us. We appreciate all your encomium for the program. We hope to do better in the 2020 edition, definitely. My name is Blessing Abu.
I thought you were going to forget your name. I am Claire Adelabo Abdul Razak. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.